All right, all right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Citizen Central podcast. Once a month, Star Citizen. We go hard with it. How y'all doing? Today, my friends, I have brought in a few different creators who have either taken a break at some point from Star Citizen or maybe recently, maybe a long time ago, but overall have been through the cycle of Star Citizen gameplay. They know what it's like to, go through some of the frustrations. So, wanted to have a good, candid conversation with you guys about what your thought process was when you went through those breaks, or rather, what it is now with the way the game is. A lot of questions are going around. So, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. From top left down, I'd like to give you all a chance to introduce yourself to the folks and tell them where you came from. So, Gallag, you first, buddy.
Hey, I'm GallagHero 7. I'm from Australia. I've been playing Star Citizen for about just over 2 years now. Yeah, I just got off a 6-month break from Star Citizen, and I'm going back onto a little break.
Going back on. Oh boy.
So that's kind of where we're at right now. But yeah, that's pretty much me.
Wait, so you started 2 years ago. Do you remember the update that you came in?
I came in on the Wednesday of Invictus Aerospace Week in the Invictus. Oh no, was it Invictus? No, the Aerospace Expedition Week in 2020. Yeah. I bought the game in a bit before that, but my computer couldn't run it, so I saved for a little bit, and then that was so it would have been 310, I think.
A usual story. I've been covering this game for years, and my computer couldn't really run it well until just these last 6 months. So I get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
All right, Montoya, my man.
Oh.
Most of the people I think know you from the Star Citizen community, but why don't you give us a rundown? Where do you come from?
Well, like where I grew up. We're just covering that before.
Tell me your life story,
about how
sir.
Elon Musk and I actually almost went to the same school and everything. But,
let's start from the Star Citizen part of life. How about that?
So, when Star Citizen first kicked off, sit down, children. This is a great. How much time do we have here?
All right,
First of all, great to see everyone.
Grandfather.
It's a pleasure.
Please,
a pleasure being back
here.
with you, Mr. Tomato, as always.
Of course.
This is my first time with you guys. GallagHero, Abdi, and Liefx. I've never actually been in a podcast with you, so always nice to meet new people. And we were just joking before the start of how they're fresh faces compared to most other people, because in Star Citizen, 2 years is considered a fresh face, I guess. So Star Citizen kicked off 2012. I kind of didn't bother first checking out when they launched a Kickstarter, because I wasn't sure the game was gonna succeed in their funding goals. But when it did, I jumped in shortly after that. So since, I guess, 2013 or so, been around. And I run the largest player org in the game called Test Squadron. That was not intentional. I didn't think that we'd be where we are on that, but we were early, we're in the right place, right time, and it's going to be a wonderful community. And here I am. Which I think puts me in a unique situation, that I'm not just a content creator, but I'm also running a large player group, which is an extra factor in, I guess, what this discussion will come to. But we'll discuss that more as we go.
Yeah, cool. AbdiYohan, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, my name is AbdiYohan. I am a Star Citizen streamer. I'm a backer from 2015. I got the game based off of a PC Gamer article or something like that, and me and my friends kind of just went crazy on it, and we all got it, and it was one of those things where we couldn't run it as well. The most we could do was get into our hangar, and I think I could also do the tutorial, the one where it was the actual story one. Yep, the one where you got to meet the guy. Then you get in your ship, you get out, and then you have to fight a certain amount of things. And I was terrible at space combat at that time. But I couldn't get into the PU or anything like that until 2016. And then by that time, I had upgraded from an Aurora to a 325A to a Freelancer. So I started off with the climb early, And then in 2016, I was trying to do missions and I just couldn't figure out how to complete them. And my friends weren't able to get into the PU. And then I just kind of ghosted on the game for like 5 years.
5 years?
Dang.
Yeah.
That's a good break.
So
Talk
you
about
win the
breaks.
award.
That's a big old break.
So yeah, I was gone for a long time, and then a lot of life happened. You know, marriage and kids and stuff and all
Oh,
sorts
mazel
of
tov.
stuff.
You,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, congratulations. You now sound like some of the YouTube comments I get where people will come in and they'll be like, I graduated high school and got married and got a doctorate and went to space, and this game's still not done.
My
Here's the
kids are
thing,
retired now.
Those people sound salty. I'm actually just like, I came back after all of that, and I came back in 2021 January, and I saw you and other people streaming Xenothreat, and I was like, this looks amazing. Like Star Citizen has come a long way, so I jumped back in. So
That's going to be it's very topical for today. I know Xenothreat's on a lot of people's minds, especially considering the conversation we'll be having, but we'll get to that. Anyways, glad to have you back, man. Your break was longer than a lot of my entire careers in some games. Like I would find a really good game and I'd play it for less than 5 years.
It's
I wouldn't have been born and are now in first grade.
Yeah, like you spend $100 on a game and you completely like forget that you did, and then you come back and you're like, oh yes, I did spend like a significant amount of money on this. I should probably actually play it.
Yeah, it's
Sunk cost fallacy.
there are a lot of people that just like put money into this and then just forgot about it. Honestly, that I'd feel blessed. I mean, if your life still allowed you to play the game, it would be really nice to have not gone through all of the development if you just wanted to play the game. But I do like watching all of it
I did
happen.
get to like sleep through some bad years, I feel like.
Yeah. Now you're back for another. Oh, we won't call this a bad year yet. We don't know how it's going to finish.
Oh, don't worry. The Pyro might be just as bad.
Well,
I mean, here's the thing. I like doing game design and that kind of stuff. So like the number one thing more than the gameplay has just been being able to consistently track development of this game and like see the updates and stuff. I eat that stuff up. I don't read newspapers in the morning like my dad. I just like get on Star Citizen,
read the
like,
patch notes.
Patch notes and all
Read
that.
all
get
the
the
friendly
newspaper
messages on Spectrum.
Let me just
what's on the patch notes for today? Okay,
My dad
turn
is
on
like,
the TV.
please stop reading this, and I'm like, nah, no, this is fun. This is what makes me happy.
And I'll say it's not necessarily a bad year. We just had some rough spots this year. But anyways, Liefx, my man.
Hi.
Tell us
Hello.
about yourself.
I'm one of the, I guess I'm one of the fresh faces. I wouldn't say I have a fresh face, but I have been playing since 2019. I came from, and still am in, I do commentary for Rocket League Esports. And I'm like, I don't want to do that kind of content on my my YouTube. So once I started getting a Star Citizen, I switched to doing content for that. I was just telling you guys just before this, in probably about 2020 to 2021. I think I heard of the game in 2015, but I think thinking back now, I think it was the Answer the Call campaign in 2016 that got me to buy the game. Right, I was because I remember hearing about the game when I was early in college, which would have been around that time, around 2016, 2017, and then. So I would have bought it then, not have had a good PC until until about 2020 to be able to play it. So that's when I've said, I should download this game. I think I first heard of it. I was looking for a graphics card way back. Wasn't there? There was a ship that came out with a graphics card
With an SSD.
Or was it SSD? Yeah, okay. There was some hardware that came with the ship, and now it's a super rare ship. That I think is when I first heard of it, actually. Yeah, but then so I've been playing it for we're getting on. It's probably close to 4 years now, I guess, and that's still like a small amount of time compared to everyone else, which is crazy. But yeah, no, I fell in love with the kind of, as we all did, the vision of it, and I'm still not 5 years break kind of burnt out, but I definitely play in stints of about I would say I play for about 2 weeks, kind of every few days. Then I'll take a 3-week break. Then I'll play for 2 weeks. Then I'll take a 3-week break. Sometimes at one point, I think my longest break was probably 2 to 3 months, I believe, in that. But yeah, I kind of pace myself because, and we'll get into talking about that. But like, yeah, there's so many other good games out there to play. I still believe in the dream of this, but it's not finished yet. It's not in a position where what I want out of it is there to commit all of my time to it. So
Yeah.
I keep up, same thing. I read all the patch notes. It's for some reason super interesting. You just don't see a lot of developers do that kind of stuff in terms of keeping you up to date behind the scenes. And I really love the recent trend too of them really going in, because even if you do show everything behind the scenes, you hide a lot of the bad stuff. But them recently in ISCs, especially, Jared's been going in on, now we failed the go no go here. You know, like I like seeing that because it really makes you realize, no, they're really being open with everything they're showing us. Obviously, no Squadron 42 stuff, but like at least with the PU, we're getting a real good look into it. And devs just don't do that in other games. Half the time, they don't even put out patch notes, and if they do, they're incomplete patch notes. So it's nice to be able to be brought along in a development like this. I mean, you could argue that it's development as a service, but it's still fun, and I'm enjoying it. So that's
I think that's what drew me in as well, is like getting to watch a game be made is pretty cool. I mean, it could be a troublesome journey. It could have a lot of disappointments, but we all play and love video games, and we don't really get to see much of what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, even just in this ongoing Microsoft, Sony, Activision trial going on with the FTC, like it came out that this game, Horizon Zero Dawn, is like 200 million, or one of the other games is like 250 million, stuff like that. And people are like, oh, that's such big insight. That's such good news. And I'm like, we get yearly reports on financials. We get to see every step of the way how they might do something that seems like a waste of time, have to throw away work that we thought was going to go into the game, and all that kind of stuff. So like behind the scenes of just that number being revealed is pretty cool to see. So I agree with you there. Yeah. You are very focused outside of Star Citizen though, right? You just said with the Rocket League and the esports stuff.
Yeah. So I would say my two main squeezes are definitely Rocket League and Star Citizen. Those are my go-to. Rocket League will always be there. I mean, I started playing in. I've always kind of been in the esports side of things. I started in Smash Bros. Melee. I TO'd for
Wave Dash, baby, Wave Dash.
yeah. I'm a Melee purist. I'll play the newer ones, but I don't think they're as good. So I TO'd. And just FGC in general. I did Street Fighter and stuff too, but I TO'd from 2012 to 2015. And then when Rocket League came out, I started casting, doing commentary for that. And that took off. And again, as I said, I wanted to do content, but I didn't want to do it in the thing that was my main thing in case of burnout. And that's one thing I don't want to take a break of. So SC became my go-to for that. For this is my passion project, but then of course if you dive into that gets a bit of burnout. So that's why it's nice to have and it was something I was going to bring up too, just about why taking breaks are I think important, is I think it's especially on that sunk cost fallacy thing, is a lot of times we invest ourselves into something and feel we have to do it, and it's totally okay to not. Just, I put a lot of money into Star Citizen as well, and I don't regret a single cent of it because I've gotten a lot of fun out of it. And if the game never comes out, to me, I think I put in what
He's lying to himself. He's
right. Yeah. No, I genuinely, I would be heartbroken, of course, if the game didn't come out. I think it'd be really sad. But it honestly, the fun I've gotten out of it, because it still is delivering something that nothing is at this point. I mean, you can't. I'm literally in the middle. I'm probably going to put out this week in the middle of a video talking about how incredible I think the Ghost Hollow mission was, because it's something that you don't do in another game. Like you sure there's you can go from space to planet side and in different games like Elite Dangerous, but and No Man's Sky, but you don't have that constant threat of PvP the whole time. You don't have that hey, I just took down a comm array that affected everyone on the server. When it comes to MMOs, you're used to instance-based stuff where it's, okay, I'm in this dungeon. Everything I do in here is completely irrelevant to everyone outside of this dungeon right now. So having that interconnectedness really creates a sense of immersion that it just, even that mission alone, actually that mission got me back took me off of a break. I've been grinding that because it's just so fun, the amount of experiences you can get out of that.
I haven't even played that one yet, but I've heard some things about it. But let's actually double down on what you were saying there. So you kind of were talking about the idea behind taking a break, why take breaks from this game, and I'd like to open it up to everybody else on the panel. Really, like we started out saying in the beginning, everybody here has taken some sort of break, and I think maybe Gallag, as you just came back from like 5 months of taking some time off, we can start off with you. But what is it that at the time that you did end up wanting to step away from Star Citizen, like what pushed you away that was stronger than, I guess, your desire to get involved with the development process?
I think that I'm entitled, just like all those people on Spectrum and Reddit, having started the game in such a, I think, really lucky time. Like in 3.10, we had that aerospace expedition, and then 3.11, 3.12. It was really, really stable. Like it was the end of Levski. I caught the back end of that, and the game was in a really good state. We had good FPS. Server tick rate was good, unlike now. And I think one of the big reasons that I do find myself coming and going from Star Citizen more often now is due to I'm a big ground pounder. Like I love PvP FPS in Star Citizen. I think it's really fun when it works. But unfortunately, over the last 6 months, it just hasn't. Like I did my first FPS PvP, I think 2 days ago with Sin. He's a guy from ramming department. And I opened a door in SPK, unloaded a full mag into a guy, and he turned around and two-tapped me, and then we both went down. And I was
Sounds like a skill issue.
Learn how to aim. Get good.
Yeah, sounds like a skill issue to me.
You just got to practice more, man.
Skill issue.
I empathize with you.
It's because the tick rate is so low because there's so many players and stuff like that, and the server FPS is so low. It's I just personally find it unfun, and it's a super super entitled take, I guess. But it's just not where I'm at. It's not where I want it to be at. Like for me to be able to really dive in and that's pretty much all.
Don't call it entitled, dude.
I don't think that's entitled at all.
It's perfectly fine to want to step away. So it just kind of degraded over time to a point where you just decided it's below the minimum of what you wanted to play.
It's a shitty feeling to go from somewhere where, like, because I've seen even the NPCs in a place where they're in a good spot. I distinctively remember 3.12.1 PTU when Xenothreat was coming. We had, I think, sometimes 8 people on a PTU server, and it was 30 server FPS, and NPCs will suppress you while other ones try and flank you and stuff like that. And
when it works,
and
it's great.
It makes it's unbelievable. Like it's like I prefer the AI in Star Citizen to Tarkov, but it's not the AI problem; it's the servers, and that's pretty much just what we're all waiting for, So that the iteration on server meshing and PES and all that stuff. So, yeah.
I don't think you have to ever say it's an entitled take to ask for better ping and tick rate. I don't.
Of course not. But I think it's like some people just deal with it. But for me, I think it's just from like, because I didn't start in like 3.0, 3.8 when it was really rough. I started from like a high point, and it's kind of gone down, which it always kind of does. There's always like, bad patches, and then it slowly builds up again, and then we have a bad run for a while, and just from what I've seen in history. But
in my opinion, an entitled take would be, hey, this sucks, and then you keep playing it and complain about it every single day instead of stepping away like you have. I think stepping away is honestly the right. I mean, it's really. I mean, you have to look at it. If the game wants to be a full game release, we have to treat it with that as the end goal, right? And if it's not there right now, you have to be realistic. Also understanding it's it's a play test. It's not.
Have you
going
guys
to be
been on
perfect.
Spectrum lately? I mean, it's tradition to basically play the game and then complain for about 24 hours and play the game again and complain again, and that's what Spectrum is.
Yeah, you have to send angry messages to especially DJ Bunton, who's
Yeah, why do you think I was trying to get a VIP ticket for SitCon? I want to complain right to the source. You know,
I've done
man,
that.
that IRC is so
I
funny.
complained directly to a source at the last CitizenCon, and then the guy started explaining why certain things were happening that I was complaining about, and after he explained to me, I was like, damn, you make perfect sense. So,
I mean,
if you think you find a dev and you're going to tell them, you're really going to give it to them. When they actually explained the reasons, and like it was way over my head because I'm very technical on the networking side, but when he explained the actual issues, the devs know what's happening, and they're trying their best. They really are.
Yeah, whenever I get the chance to ask a dev anything about the game and they tell me what the problem is, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's hard to remember that like this is a company and it's not just like a game is like this little circle that they're building. It's like the company is this massive amount of circles and they're all connecting to the game in the middle, and like certain things can't happen if other certain things don't. And I hate hearing that. I hate it.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, there's dependencies, but in all honesty, it ends up becoming a problem more often than not.
Well, it's going to happen. It's going to happen more with I'll keep it short. It's going to happen more with a game like this specifically because they're building a game systemically. Like everything has it's modular, that every system they build interacts with another system to create an emergent gameplay experience, right? Like that's how you do that. Every system. It's the same thing with like GTA. They didn't program in the backfire off a car will set a gas trail on fire. They just gave those things properties so that when they interact, they create that experience for you, right? Same thing with Star Citizen. So when you're creating so many systemic systems in a game like this, they're going to be waiting for other things. You can finish 5 modules, sure, but they don't interact because the 6th module is not done yet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I feel like with their dependencies that we don't always know about or see, that they have, like, they're completely privy to. So I mean, like, we're talking about entitlement, and it's so easy for us to feel, because we experience the things. But can you imagine being a person that went from like playing Star Citizen to working there? And just being like, seeing it all from that aspect, and then also seeing the community's reaction and being like, oh man, I don't know. I feel like that would just be a very
jobs
humbling
open right now for
experience.
CIG.
Yeah, there are quite a few people from the community who ended up working there.
Right. Yep.
I bet it would be a very humbling experience.
Montoya, tell me about your experience with either taking breaks or as somebody who runs a big community. I'm sure you talk to plenty of people who talk about it. Gal is kind of talking about the general degradation of the game causing him to want to step away. Do you vibe with that? Do you see different reasons?
So that actually is a big topic because there are people in my community there are some people that play every single day. There's some Evocati members that take it very, very seriously, and whatever patch comes out, they're in there playing. And to those people, I tip my hat because I cannot do it. It's amazing to me that some people stick with it like they can. And we're talking day in, day out, like hammering away. Oh, I found a bug. I'm going to repeat this bug. I'm just playing now because I have free time. They're always in there. Then there's other people who played in 2018 and said, okay, I'll come back when there's something big happening. And then new patch drops, I'll play for now, then disappear again. And so there's people who hardly play. Then there's people who play every day. And then there's people who sit and play and complain every single day. And then there's people just happy with the way it is. So it's really a spectrum. There's no real, it's not a monolith, when it comes to taking breaks. I think every normal person out there, and you guys in here too, have taken breaks at one point or another for several reasons. One of them was the hardware issue. And I just upgraded my PC recently. I was running on a 1080 Ti, which is great, but it had 16 gigabytes RAM. And that 16 gigabytes RAM, DDR3, was not running any of the big landing zones because they just dropped to 5 frames a second and it was impossible to do. So I've taken breaks for long periods of time just because my hardware needed to catch up, and I'm not rushing out to upgrade my hardware every single year because we've all kind of moved on. There's kids now and there's other expenses to be had, like my kids need PCs. You guys will find out too. Which actually works out great because what happens now, every time I upgrade, the parts cycle down, right?
There you
So
go.
it goes to the eldest kid, and then from the eldest kid, it goes on to the younger kid, and everyone. So my youngest kid's sitting on like a 1080 Ti with 32 gigs RAM right now because that's what the low end PC is.
There you go.
So it works at the end.
I'm still thinking about that in terms of like when I got my first PC, which is like 8 years ago. That would have been amazing. 1080 Ti and 32 gigs of RAM.
The funny thing is, for you guys who've been around for a while, is that we always joke when you mentioned the AMD and Mustang combo. Okay, so I got the AMD 270 AMD, which is an old card, but at the time was a great mid-range card, which was running the Hanger module. And we were saying, this is the card that's going to carry us to Star Citizen. And then obviously time goes on. And then the 970 came out. I got the 970. This is the card that's going to carry us to Star Citizen. And then onwards. And here we are. So I think, the hardware issue is definitely something which makes people take breaks. For me, it is. But just from your psychological health, there's a lot of people, I know you guys have seen your communities too, and I see a lot of it. There's people who are angry. There's people who get very, very pissed off that it's taking a long time. And the thing is, I'm older, and so time moves at a different rate for me. But when you're younger, can you imagine being 22, 23 years old, and a game taking a year or 2 years, and you're waiting 2 years for a game, and now you're 24? And so it's definitely very difficult for younger people. I feel that when you're, Gallag there, I feel your pain, man.
So, yeah.
There's a guy in my org, he joined when he was 17, all right? He's 25 now. He's like, where's the game? Can you imagine between 17 and 25 years old waiting for a game? Like, oh my God, that's your entire life, all right? So there's definitely the age mechanic there. But, for me personally, I guess my situation is a bit different when it comes to taking breaks, is that I don't really take a break. I may slow down on content creation, but because I run an org in the game, I'm in there every single day. And if I'm not making content, I'm interacting with people in my community and helping them through the pain of waiting through a bad patch. So there's no real break for me.
Is huge, man.
Yeah, so a lot of what's great about this community is everyone's really helpful and understanding, and there are people who do seriously have very, very strong feelings and issues with the time it takes. They're not used to it. They've never been in game development before. They don't understand why it takes long. They're frustrated. And I'm sure what you guys do in your communities too is just be patient, play something else. Like you're just giving normal advice. Go play Starfield for 6 months. It's okay. And that's all right. It's another
okay
topic
like
to
other
discuss,
games.
but I'm very happy to see that happening.
But there is.
I feel like that's another.
Go ahead.
I feel like that's another thing I see too. People tend to they play Star Citizen, and then because they've played Star Citizen, they have like an allegiance to the game. And I'm like, you don't you can go play Elite, you can play Eve.
I've never understood
you don't
that.
have to just play Star Citizen. It's I think in a lot of cases it comes to a really unhealthy point. Like you see the people that get banned for 10 years from Spectrum and stuff like that, and it's just like.
Ooh. I've never seen that. That's crazy.
It's always interesting to me when that happens because I didn't come from a gaming background. I kind of just stumbled into it and I got into the position I did. And people were saying things like, you got to be a hardcore gamer to do this. You got to be a real hardcore gamer to do that. You've got to be dedicated to Star Citizen. And I was like, I don't understand that mindset. It's not a healthy mindset to be fixated on one game and make that your personality, which a lot of people who complain the loudest, that's what they do. And so they make Star Citizen their entire personality. And when something happens there, they're angry. But if you want to get deep on this, they're angry at themselves.
Well, that's something we see is pervasive in everything nowadays, right? Like people find something that they love, they find community, they find belonging, and it kind of becomes their personality and and it gets a lot of control over your feelings. And I think part of this discussion, I hope, can help people realize that it's perfectly fine to just step away for a bit, because as we've seen a lot recently, it's causing a lot more people more anger than it's worth. I mean, I see people in my Discord server that are, like you said, legitimately angry about the pace of development, and it's just at this point, take a step back, look at some other stuff. And I'm glad that we are seeing something like Starfield coming out that is not only a space game, but it's also a very large and loud space game. It gets a lot of attention, and it's going to get a lot of support. So that's a great place for people to be able to spend time playing other games. And there are other things, Mass Effect, Outer Wilds, Elite Dangerous, Spaceborne, all this stuff is there to play. But seeing something with that much backing behind it, I think lends a lot more I don't know the word for it, but it gives people a lot more of an option to just be able to step away for a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
AbdiYohan, let's talk about your break, because you took 5 years away. So talk a little bit about that.
That's crazy.
So I mean, I backed, like I said, in 2015. It was a hardware issue, kind of like with other stories you heard here. I wasn't able to get into the PU, and then when I got an R9 390, so like back in the day card, I was finally able to get into the PU. But I didn't join a community. I think I joined Test actually back in the day, but I didn't join Test. I didn't join
Nice.
Test. Actually, join Test. I was like, oh, here's an org. I'm joining the
banned for
org, but
inactivity.
I never like went into the forums or anything like that. And I had friends that were just like, you know what, we're gonna wait till we get cards to play this, and then they were like, we're gonna wait until this thing is fully released, and so like things just kind of fizzled out for me. And I come from playing all sorts of games, but I don't come from like I stream, but I don't consider myself like a streamer, I guess. I When I started streaming illustration work because I'm a graphic designer, senior graphic designer, and I illustrate on stream. The first things that I ever did on Twitch was illustration, mostly because I like to watch other people illustrate while I illustrate, and it's fun to see other artists working while you're working. Yeah, I'm working on a piece about a piece with Bognagus right now, which is I'm just like drawing other Star Citizen streamers while I play Star Citizen.
Yeah, I thought I saw that. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's a fun time. But what I'm trying to get at is I feel like we're talking about that identity of being a Star Citizen player. I follow Star Citizen very closely, but I also make sure that like, I play Diablo, I play Halo, I play Destiny 2, which kind of a similar thing here, talking about like, companies that put out regular patch notes and communication and all that. So I that 5-year gap or 4-year gap or whatever you want to call it, it wasn't like me being mad and running away. It was me kind of just like slipping away and forgetting about it, and then remembering that it was a thing, coming back and seeing streamers like you, Space Tomato, you, Subliminal, and who else? Zero State. Really great streamers, and just seeing that you are all having a really great time. So I told myself, you know what? I can wait for my friends if I want to get into this, or I could just join a community. And I joined your community. I got into Garden Interstellar Initiative like right at the beginning, pretty much, I feel like.
Yeah.
2021, right?
Yeah, right when we were starting.
And yep, and met some really wonderful people and played pretty hardcore. I've ebbed and flowed since then, but I've constantly been watching ISC. I never miss an ISC. I read all the patch notes. I haven't dropped like I had dropped that 5-year gap. I haven't dropped like that since then. And I don't think I will. I'll take breaks, but I don't think I'll drop it in terms of like completely forgetting the game exists. I'm kind of just in it now, I guess.
I mean,
you can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave.
Yeah, right.
You can check out anytime you like.
I think, well, at this point, I mean, just knowing what's going into it, Abdi, it's going to be hard because like there's always going to be at least that minimum level of curiosity of, is it near finished? Is it almost?
Yeah.
If it does finish and you still don't want to play it, you're still going to want to look into it and see how it is now, right? That curiosity is never going to leave you.
It can't,
Yeah.
honestly. And there's enough that they put out to keep you tied along. Now, if you're a content creator that's kind of living and breathing by what they are talking about, that's different. I feel like that's a whole nother level of following this game. Luckily, I'm not there, but I feel like that can lead to a different type of burnout, and maybe someone else here can talk about that. Because I don't make content on YouTube or anything like that, so I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about that, Leaf.
Well, that also kind of adds into that, like you said, some people just watch these videos that they put out, some people only watch like a certain content creator to get news on it. So some people have a very small window into Star Citizen and they like it that way. You know, you don't want to play the game, you don't want to call or watch the patch notes of the PTUs and all that stuff. You just watch one person's updates on the game, and that's how you get your stuff. But Leaf, go ahead and talk towards your experience with this.
Yeah, well, that's how I kind of started too, because like I didn't, and to this day, I mean, I think the Garden's probably the only. I have a ton of Discord, Star Citizen Discord communities I'm in. I just don't look at them.
Right.
Right. It's like I got my own as well, but I never really invested in a lot of communities. I was having that like kind of outside look in at the beginning. I mean, I think one of those, a good early starter one, not that he doesn't have deeper content, but Board Gamer is a really good, just, hey, casually, I don't want to read the patch notes myself. Let me just throw this on while I'm cooking or something. And you just hear them thrown at you. Cool, I'm up to date, right? It's a good point to say, because there's a lot of creators that can they'll be there for the people that kind of want that win to win, but they're not, giving an update every 2 seconds, a short about, okay, here's the leaked avocado patch notes. Here's a rumor. Here's an opinion piece. And I think that's where some of my burnout came from. Part of it was, again, being a fresher face to the scene. I look at some of the bigger creators, that have been in it for a while. Montoya, Space Tomato. You look at there's Morphologists. All these guys. I'm like, I don't know as much as them, so I'm like, I get the imposter syndrome. I was telling you guys this before we started the podcast.
Imposter.
Right. And so for me, part of my burnout comes from, I told Tomato this the other day. I have, I counted it. I actually added another one recently. I'm up to about 12 scripts unfinished right now for video ideas. The problem is I get partway through and I think, do people care about this opinion? Has it already been said before? And I'm living in a world comparing myself to the content that's already out there, when I should probably look at it, like you had just mentioned, as being, okay, I'm the one creator people are looking at for their input of Star Citizen. And I probably should be doing that instead. And I guess if I say something really stupid, it's just going to drive a lot of comments and engagement and make the video pop off more. So I need to.
Publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, right.
Engagement, mate. Spell something wrong.
On that note on that note of the burnout, I want to interject, and I'm going to be honest about something here that I've hit. And that is, at some point, I mean, I've done all the content that you guys have mentioned. I've read patch notes, I've done gameplay, and the problem I've run into, and I want to ask, if I may do this quickly, Mr. Tomato, I find that for me personally, I'm caring less about certain things, like when Squadron 42 notes come out and go, we've improved the responsive of the AI bartender, and that's fine, but I don't care anymore. There was a time like, oh my God, they've improved the responsiveness of the AI bartender, but now I'm like, I don't care. I'm reaching a point where I'm like, I want to see it. I want to see the results, all right? Sure, I can make a video talking about how they've improved the responsiveness of the AI bartender, but because I'm not passionate about that piece of news, I don't feel I want to make a video about it and go, hey guys, you wouldn't believe what happened today. In great news, they've improved the responsiveness of the AI, but I don't have it in me. I just don't have it, because I feel, and I'm not saying this because I'm saying it like for the 10th time, I feel like we are closer to the actual game.
Right.
I feel like there is something big coming and announcements in CitizenCon, but I've lost the passion for the small, tiny details that go, we've improved responsiveness of the server. Like, I don't care. I'm at the point where I want to see it. And because I care less about those small details, which were important to me 5 years ago, I feel I'm not putting out the content. And I'm not excited about the content to people who might be wanting to see it. I don't know.
I think that is universal. This is something I wanted to get into a little bit in a bit, because the place that we are at with this game right now is different from any other time. I mean, obviously, there have always been times when they've been like, oh yeah, Squadrons, and you can play all the way through. It's going to be in beta testing next year. Yeah, Star Citizen's doing great. This is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But like, we can all tell that the game has finally gotten to a point where they have gotten their teams together, missions teams, landing zone teams, what are some other teams now? I'm drawing a blank. Like, there are several teams that you can see their updates and their ISC episodes that they have a much better understanding of what they are doing. These birds, they have a much better understanding of what they are doing and what their goals are. So the development kind of is moving better in that way. But at the same time, I think what you're kind of getting at is like there's almost open development fatigue in that we hear about these things, we hear about small changes, and they're not patch notes. So like we read that on the monthly report, something like something happened. There's a slight development update here, but we don't know when that's coming into the game. We don't know if it's in the next patch, if it's going to be within a year. And a lot of people read these things, hear them, don't notice them, and then get fatigued over hearing about the small things over and over.
Yeah.
Information overload there.
Yeah. 100%. And I think it's eventually going to get to the point where that's actually something I like, but maybe not with development too. Like one of my things I like, at least from my perspective, my vision of what this is going, if I understand the vision of this game, is that I want to be able to jump into a world where I can't do everything. I'm hoping that there's going to be an event happening over in Nyx that I can't get to because I'm over here in this system dealing with another mission or another emergent event that happened. There's an org battle happening, and then you have to go on YouTube and you have to watch that content. Someone else posts this big org battle that you're like, I was 5 systems away, didn't even know that was happening. And to me, that makes that world feel really huge. And I feel like that's when, in my opinion, that's when content is going to really explode, is when you have, I mean, I have plans to start a second channel strictly for role play. Me and my buddy are going to get an Odyssey. We're going to hop on travel systems, meet people with prox comms, and that's it. We'll have 2 characters that travel around. And to me, that's unique content that can't really be done right now. And that's part of where, sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, and it separates you. I've heard Space Tomato say this too. Citizen Kate, she makes videos where she's telling stories through the gameplay and the emergent storytelling that's happening in her day-to-day gaming experiences, and it takes a lot more work. But I've seen your videos, Leaf, and the videos where you make those stories happen are so engaging, and they separate you from being like, well, Board Gamer already told this story, or Space Tomato already told this story, like not story, but already read the patch notes, or you know,
you guys are boring.
Already read the patch notes. Like your story is your own. Like I'm just saying, like your story is your own, and I feel like that takes so much more work to curate, but it's also really engaging.
So that's part of where the burnout comes from, is me trying to also find out what is the content that my audience cares about. Again, I've done machinima, I've done short stories, I've done I tried the news thing. Then I'm like, okay, no, there's plenty of people doing this good already. I'm not going to do this. And I've done opinion pieces more recently. That's been kind of my go-to. I've done kind of funny compilations. I've done role play clips, and trying to figure out what it is my specialty has been kind of hard for me as well, because like you start to self-reflect a lot on what is my value to this community, and when you can't find it, the burnout kind of gets multiplied at that point. You start saying, okay, I put out this piece, especially with content creation, I put out this piece and it tanked in views, it didn't do good, and you're like, but I thought that was the thing people wanted to see. Why are they not? Maybe it was a thumbnail, maybe it was a title, and that adds on to any burnout that you were having maybe from gameplay. And this is why I was actually, one of my scripts not done. It's gonna look like I'm copying you now, Tomato, but one of my scripts was, it's okay to take a break. And I'm halfway through that. Though.
Preach it. That's not stepping on his toes. We need more people saying that, because honestly, with all these salty Spectrum people, that's a message that needs to be heard multiple times from multiple people.
No bricks allowed.
Yeah, well, I think the important thing is understanding
the rest of us.
what's important to you. Because Montoya mentioned, it's like there are people that play every single day, and if you enjoy that, I'm not going to tell you not to do that, right? That's up to you, but you have to be real. 2 things come into it. What's your expectations of the game? What do you want to get out of it? And if you know that, then you're going to be able to call a limit for yourself and say, okay, I just want a couple good FPX experiences. I just want to explore a planet that I haven't seen before. Do that, and then back out and try again later when a new patch comes out, if it interests you. But you don't have to play every single patch. If it's just introducing, again, Xenothreat. I did it the first time it ever happened, and I've never done it since, because to me, there's better gameplay loops. But that's just because that's what I don't feel like I have to play Xenothreat every single time.
And that's kind of the point of the game, is like the game's being made in a way that a lot of different gameplay is supposed to be available. Yeah, and a lot of that stuff for me particularly, I'm not super interested in playing the game. Not gonna lie, I've not been that interested for years because I'm not combat focused.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here.
He's a fraud.
I mean, how much of my content on YouTube, when I put out a gameplay video on YouTube, it does terribly because I don't play the game. I don't put that content on my channel. I haven't for the last 4 years. I came to this game because the development is interesting, and we need more good space games that do this kind of immersive sim stuff. And I am a engineer. I'm an explorer. I'm a data runner. That stuff's not in the game. If that's stuff that you want to do, not only do you not have to buy the concept ship that promises to do that at some point, you don't have to play the game until that stuff's coming in. And I think that's why the game's gotten so much more popular lately, because we're seeing things like mining getting more substantial, salvage coming in, cargo refactor, medical gameplay. These types of things draw people back in because those are the specific things that you're talking about, Leaf, that they can play. You don't have to force yourself to go dogfight people just because Star Citizen exists, you know?
Yeah. And I don't want to take too much of the talking here, but just to kind of finish off of what I think people need to understand about themselves is, again, first off, understand your expectations going in, then understand your limits. I mean, this is something I struggled with just single player games in general, is playing them, is because I also felt, well, if I'm playing a single player game, and I'm sitting on my couch, I'm wasting time. I need to be making content. I need to put this out here. I'm not getting as good at Rocket League anymore because I'm not grinding ranked. And I had to step back and say, well, in this moment, what do I want? Let me sit back. I have a philosophy called the four corners. I look at the four corners of my room. I pull myself out of the screen I'm on, and I say, I am right here. What's going to make me happy right now? And sometimes that's getting into Star Citizen and just solo mining with some lo-fi hip hop on in the background, enjoying my time. Sometimes,
bro, that's me every night at 2 a.m. That's what I'm doing. Like, that's like 319. That's all I've been doing.
And you have to start telling yourself, if I don't do those things, you get yourself in a loop of constantly thinking of all the things you want to be doing, and then you're doing none of them. And I feel like that brings that burnout in more, because you feel like there's too much to handle at this point. So you just have to pick something, start doing it, but make sure you're understanding what you're enjoying in the game. And if it's playing every single day, then keep doing that. But only do that. You're not a failure for leaving for a little bit. It's absolutely okay, as long as the next time you go in, you're really going to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Gal, I want to go back to your break, because you started around the beginning of this year. And I think now we should talk about the beginning of this year. This was it's about this time last year, actually, we started to hear about PES being something that they were getting into the game, and the prototype was working, and well, we're going to get testing going, server meshing might be coming in the next 6 to 8 months, that kind of thing. Like many things that come out of the company, they were inaccurate, things happened, they ran into problems, and we saw the PES patch come out in like March, right? March or April. And it was rough. It was rough. This year in general has been pretty rough. Do you guys feel like right now is the worst that you've seen this game? I know some of you joined fairly recently. Montoya, you might be able to speak more towards this, but do you feel like this year is the worst you've seen?
No. Sorry, you weren't asking me.
No. Anybody can answer.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been around that long. For me, yeah, for sure. I mean, I know, I mean, I've heard the horror stories of like 3.0 and 3.8 where it was another case of like thousands of people not able to get in the game. I had a lot of people who I hang out with who just couldn't play because they were getting like a 32 or 1608 error. In fact, I've had that before as well. I think during 3.17, I actually couldn't play live at all. I could only play PTU because my account was broken. And you message support, and support's like, kick rocks. Like they're like, there's nothing we can do, you know. So, and that's, you know, when breaks come on. But yeah, for me, yeah, definitely the worst.
Okay.
I think definitely the 3.17. What was the bad patch? Was 3.17? I think I've blocked up my memory. I'm trying
the
to
long
repress
patch?
You know what's interesting?
3.17 was the long.
was it 318 or 317? Which was
Well,
the one notable
318,
game.
1 and 2 completely broke the game for me. Like my
So
FPS was 5 when I'm
I
usually
had
in
the
like
same
30.
experience in my org. My org is a microcosm of the game itself because of the amount of people in there, and there were people simply unable to log in. Like they try to log in, they get the error saying whatever doesn't work, and they said, "Okay, I'll try next week." They try next week, didn't work again, and it went on for weeks. There was one guy couldn't log in for like 6 weeks, and there's nothing support could have done either. So it was overall a terrible experience. And speaking of breaks, I think if anyone wanted to ever take a break, the last couple of patches were it.
Yep.
And if they're watching this, I think it's safe to dip your toes back in at this point. It's running. I played yesterday and running great now, but it was definitely a rough time the last couple of patches.
It's definitely, it reminds me of the 3.0 cycle between 3.0 and 3.3 when, FPS wouldn't get above 20 frames per second. And at that time, actually, that was, I think, when I took my break. Mrs. Tomato does remind me, there was a time back then, I think, when I put the game down and was like, I am not going to do this for a little while. And I don't remember how long it lasted, but yeah, that was
upon myself anymore.
It reminds me a lot of that. And I think, I agree with you. I think if there was a time to take a break, PES would have been a good time.
But at the same time, I do recommend for anyone who has been on a break to try it out now. I mean, I think now it's great. We've been a great time in 319. And I'm hopeful that CitizenCon does reveal us something exciting. And I'm not going to hold my breath for Pyro. But the game is in a much better state now.
I feel like core tech. Oh, sorry.
You go.
I just want to say quickly. I feel like core tech, whether it's PTU tested, or or effectively or not, core tech is just going to shake up the servers. Is going to mess with things. Yeah, it's going to mess with things, and it's rough because, like, if you ask me if this was the worst year, I'd be like, no, I've been having a great time. That's only because I got player unstowed for 2 days once in 318. Just once for 2 days. That was it, and then I got back in.
That's the bar. I could only not log in for 2 days, so
But that's fine though. Like 2 days in the scope of 10 years, like that. I'm like, whatever. There was probably other times in the game where I wasn't able to do that too, or like where I went in and I got a 30K or whatever. But I'm seeing more of what I want to see. Like Montoya was saying, I'm seeing those professions come in. It's so to me, this year is exciting. Like I'm like, like the Vulture came in. I didn't think the Vulture was actually going to come in this year. I was like, wow, they actually made it work, and there's a new profession. Dope. We've seen the Starfarer come in with refueling, not this year, but in past years. But we're seeing like more things come online than 2017 or whatever when I was playing back then, and I was just, I don't know, things just weren't working. My computer couldn't run it. I was just like, I'm gonna forget about this game for a while.
Yeah, well, go to sleep. I feel like Gallag, I know you had something to say, but I just want to interject on that. It's like I feel like despite the fact that we've seen more devs move to the Squadron 42 development, we're still seeing significant, impactful improvement of the game. Like the stuff they're introducing impacts, in my opinion, obviously we knew it was going to be big, but PES completely changed and will continue to change it. But just seeing even the advancements of mining, those things extend and complete gameplay loops, as you said, we're still getting, despite reduced development, really impactful patches. And that to me is exciting. I forget what it was. I think it was Tomato that said that, or it might have been someone else, but said that devs are really getting a hold of what they're doing now with the development, right? They have a hold of these tools, and individual people are creating wonderful things. I mean, you look at the one guy that's like, I'm just going to make rivers, and that completely changes the landscape around you. So I think
the Great Cat PTV track, like the
right. Those are full experiences. I mean, like that's something that I can bring a new player into and say, hey, yo, let's go do an FPS mission and then drive little buggies around in this. Let's fly to another planet. Go into this city and do this thing.
My experience with those tracks was literally, I just went out and tried to race, and somebody just kept trolling me and trying to block me. So I was just like, okay, I'm never coming back here again. Gal, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna go back to how you guys were saying that this patch is kind of like it's feeling a lot better, and I think yes, that's true for certain game loops, but I think that's only true for certain game loops.
Sure.
I see like mining's really good right now, trading's really good right now. Um, but then I look at the other side, like for me as a player, I started off in a small org that was dedicated to helping new players, and then from there a bunch of the players moved on to a pirate org, which I joined, and literally no one's playing. I look at people like ramming department, and they even have like 10 people right now in Discord. They're all playing Tarkov, and it's like there's certain things in the game that like even the tediousness of like acquiring gear. Like if I want to get in my prospector and go mine, or in a mole or something like that, I can just chuck the diaper on, the space diaper, white helmet, white suit, and just go out and mine, and that's all. But when you're doing like FPS, or if you're doing Jumptown or something like that, or and because I this Jumptown I participated in, and I had 4,000 AUEC. So I was like, okay, I'll go do a bunker, get some money, buy some gear. I did that, went to do a PvE ship mission, and I got rammed by an NPC. And that's 20k gear gone.
Sounds like another
I'm like,
skill issue.
well, I mean, like I
See,
stream it
recurring
and
theme
you
here.
see that it's not even close, but it's oh man, it's just some of the tediousness. I think like
It's not me, it's the
certain
game.
things like we need I think we need some QOL. I've said this for the I think I said this like a year ago or something. But we need QOL when it comes to like buying gear and stuff as well, because pirating is just not a thing right now. Uh, but yeah, I wanted to touch on that, and also I definitely agree with the direction, like how we see devs really having a direction now. I was so impressed. I think it was DJ Bunton. I don't know. It wasn't ISE. It was in
Star Citizen Live.
what's the magazine thing called?
Oh, Jump Point.
Oh, Jump Point. Yeah.
Jump Point. I read Bunton's Jump Point article, and I was so impressed because it went from an SEL where like you can literally look in the comments of that Star Citizen Live, the one just gone, and people are like, oh, so you got rid of the life of walking out to the pad and just added elevators, and people are like, but there's gameplay they're adding to that, and I heard that a dev say gameplay like 4 times throughout that, but we got a station that doesn't really have anything new. It's needed. It's totally something that's needed, and PO needs an upgrade. But we kind of got, oh, we have a new station, and people went to Bar Citizen, and that was the ISC. But then to see the other side of like reading through Jump Point, and that devs really have a goal, and they're like, we have a plan where we're gonna do. This is what we're going to do for Arena Commander, and these are the steps we're going to go to get to there, and then we have steps that they're going to move to after that. It's just like it's a thing that you don't see in any other game. But yeah, it's really cool to be able to see their direction, kind of thing.
I think that's actually a really good point, because I feel like they're not doing as well at that as they should be now. I think over time, if you went into a conversation, let's say you hopped onto the Star Citizen subreddit in 2019 and you said something, almost everybody in that subreddit would know the reference you were making. They would remember the introduction of whatever assets, or the around the verse, or the letter from the chairman. The community was still, I don't want to say super small, but it was very locked in. Like the information just got around.
It's a dedicated community. Yeah.
At this point, there's so many things moving, and there's so many more players involved, especially casually following the game, that you miss tons of information. I mean, most of the people who are following this game at this point, it feels like don't know what the plans are for the economy, what the plans are for ship flight in atmosphere, like these big concepts they've talked about.
Quanta is and stuff like that. Like,
right.
No
so I do think that they are missing the ball at some points on making sure that kind of info, like you said, that's in Jump Point, gets out in the right way. That information would have been great in a Star Citizen Live, because
it would have been an awesome SEO. I mean, we have my brain. Oh my god. Sorry, keep going. My brain just completely went blank.
No, it's fine. I think that they could really
Even
use
break for
just.
Star Citizen.
I think they could really just use like a web page or an FAQ that tells people about these major topics, because it's so easy to miss them.
Can I take the other side of that very quickly? I am part of games where I don't want to know everything that's happening in them. I like just to play the game and stumble across it and go, holy crap, I never knew this was possible. And for most people, not the special people in here right now, because what you do is follow everything so closely. But for a normal person to come into a game, you're supposed to discover these things through gameplay. Like, I had no idea that if I walk into this cave, I'll find this treasure, which is actually part of an exploration game loop, which I had no idea existed. That's how we're supposed to play the game, but we'll never get that pleasure, I guess.
Well,
I definitely agree with that, and I think that there is the point where you can not look at everything, put the blinders on, and I love that. Like, personally, that's the way I like to play most games. I don't want any information. I want to struggle.
Exactly.
Like, that's the fun in it. But if you want the info, as you guys said earlier today about the flood of information, we get, the bartender is getting a update on how responsive. It's like, we get such a flood of information with like random stuff like that isn't going to be in the game. So I'm like, we could have had this on, all of these interesting things that are happening, like that we see in Jump Point, and then we get these random updates for Squadron 42 that are like, doesn't really like mean, it doesn't transfer to anything that we're going to see anytime soon. So it's frustrating to get such a flood, and then people talk about that stuff, like, and it's like the honeymoon hype. Like, you see people that are like fairly new to the community that just like die hard, are like, there's nothing wrong, but I think you know what I'm getting at. But
for sure.
And I agree with you guys on being able to discover stuff in the game. I actually talk about that quite a bit. You shouldn't have to go to the website to like find a guide or to figure out when an event is happening, or to understand. You shouldn't have to go to the ARC star map to know what the risk assessment is around a planet. And I know that's not real time, but like, there are a lot of things that need to be put into the game so that people can learn that as actual gameplay. But when they're promising us a ride along on the development, when they're saying that Inside Star Citizen and Star Citizen Live are meant to be about learning the development of the game, it makes a lot more sense when we actually see that, as opposed to a commercial for a new ship coming out,
Yes.
Star Citizen needs to continue. They do it better than any other game, but diegetic menus, everything, like having things exist in verse. Like when I pull up my Moby Glass, that's probably the closest to a menu. Obviously, you have your escape menu, but you always need that. But when you pull up your Moby Glass, that's in verse. Someone else can see that you're looking at that menu. Your character puts its arm up, it's happening. Someone can look over your shoulder while you're refining ore and see exactly what you're doing. Diegetic menus can extend past just being menus. Like everything, these updates, letting people know, again, as you said, risk assessment around a planet can be done in game. And I think probably will all be done in game. I think the point is they don't want you leaving. I mean, look at the idea of having like a reporter gameplay loop of a ship that can broadcast to other people. You could roll up at a bar and watch, the Daymar rally in game. And to me, that's, some people are going to still want to watch on Twitch while they do other stuff, but like having that in game creates a larger sense of world, and gets people up to date with what's going on around the world. There's probably people that play this game that have no idea, never heard of Daymar Rally before, but they would if all of a sudden it's happening in game and they stumble across, and again, they go to a bar, another player that mentions it. Oh, I'm going to the bar to watch Daymar Rally. What's that? Now the information can spread out. When it comes to development, though, you're only ever going to get the people looking at the development that want to see that development. I mean, to other games I play, how many times you boot up a game? I mean, with Rocket League is my example. I boot it up, the news thing tab pops. I instantly close the news tab and click Q rank, right? Like and I'm a person very personally involved in that game, and I still skip a lot of those tabs because I just don't. It's probably not going to affect me. Everyone, even if you had a menu in game, people are going to skip it. But if you can bring those new things like Xenothreat, they do it pretty good. Hey, it's Agent Dooley, popping up, telling people something's happening. The more they can do that and streamline that, I still think has a long way to go to streamline that. But the more they can do that, I think that's the only way you're going to get that inverse happenings information to other players without them stumbling across it themselves, is to do it diegetically like that.
It really makes you feel immersed too. Like, I mean, even in the history of MMOs, I see people always talk about classic WoW and how it wouldn't be jumping into Discord to hang out with your friends. You'd jump in WoW and your friends would be in there. Or Star Wars Galaxies, you'd jump in and your friends would be in there. Or even when I was in school, I'd get home from school and jump on the PlayStation 3, get on Grand Theft Auto 5, and we'd go hang in some doofus's apartment and watch the stupid cartoons that are on the television and just hang out. But I don't think there's really like much of an like having something like that to be able to watch Daymar Rally in game would be so awesome. Like, yeah.
I think
you
that's
touched
the
on
goal. I
something,
think that's where they're going with it too, though.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Montoya.
yeah. These
You
are
touched on, like, my biggest peeve at the moment, just quickly, the Gallag, is that when I think the biggest issue that I've faced as an org leader is that people log in, they go, where is everyone? Because there's no ways just to join on your friends. We go, well, go into Discord, then add this guy into your friends list, then join on his server. But oh, no, the server's full. When that comes into this game, that will complete the game for me. Because when people join, they're in my org and they go, where's everyone? Just join us. Bam, you're in our server.
You can just get
you can
in
join
there.
us right away. Like, that will be double chef kiss.
I think that's the big thing, is that a lot of the stuff that we all want in this game, even when, you know, you see people coming in and they're like, why does it work this way? Why would you not do it that other way? And most of the time the answer is, oh, they just haven't built that yet. That's like the problem. Every time I want to be able to have someone just
really
join my
problem,
party.
Though?
I
Is
mean,
it a
it's
problem,
of the
or is it
things are there already.
something that they're working on and that we might just need to be patient on?
It's a problem that will get solved. So if you're trying to play now, then yes, it's a problem. But then again, that comes down to the expectation of what you expect it to be. We know it's a play test and in development, right? But for the average player that they're advertising to try and play the game right now, like for free flies,
that's a big point too, the way that they advertise it, because, like, you know, for me as a person who's fully invested in this, I'm like, it's not a problem. I know that they're working on it. It's an alpha. And then I open YouTube and I see a commercial that's saying, like, play SC now. That's like, it's ready. It's, you know, get in the game.
Now and then there's unstowed issues for
and I'm like, okay, so there's like kind of what Space Tomato was saying earlier. There's some communication issues. There's some expectation issues. I feel like level setting is a really difficult thing to do when you're trying to grow a game in the way that they're doing. They don't have publishers. They don't have, like, you know, marketing outside of their own, you know, internal and external marketing teams. So they're trying to generate revenue at the same time as, you know, build the game and its community. I don't envy what they're doing, and it's a tough balance to strike. But, you know, I think always putting the always giving our feedback that more communication for these things, and being honest about that, is a good thing. I think, you know,
and
being
I think
critical
even going
and
back
and
on what I said about, like, you know, wanting to hang out in that MMO setting. That's how I met my first friends in the verse. I was at Everest Harbor. I looked over and I was like, hey, there's a hot dog store there. And there was 3 dudes standing around a table eating hot dogs. And
wait, Gallag, isn't that no, there was another guy.
Real life or in the game?
Do you know the streamer Virgil P, I think his name is? He's Australian as well. So you got to know him, right?
Yeah, we love each other. Yeah, me and Virgil love each other.
I met him through a role play thing. I was playing with my girlfriend, and I forget. It was some weird role play. We were using prox comms, and he's like, "What is going on?" But he just loved how weird it was. And that's how we met him. Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool.
I want to turn the question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, like, I saw 3 guys eating hot dogs. I went and got a hot dog with them. This is my 2nd week of playing. I think it was like my 4th day, and I've been playing with them for 2 years now. So
that is cool.
That's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah.
Beautiful story.
I mean,
hot dogs.
Were they double dogs? That's the real question.
So I'm eating 2 hot dogs at once.
Dogs.
Man.
Why do people love double dogs? There's no sauce.
They're completely unsauced. Yes, that
Where's
is true.
the cheese?
Like
There's
my
nothing.
bone dry double dog. straight out of the space
Right,
station.
well
You know,
done.
it's been sitting on that
Raw
space
dog.
station
Classic
for
for me.
way too long.
Oh my
Where
God.
did the meat even come from, right? Like, there's no animals in Stanton, so.
Space
It's a
whales.
rant to me.
That's where they went.
So it's probably 900 years in the future. They're probably growing it in the back.
It's rant dung, probably. It's made
I want to turn the question on you guys from talking more about your own perspective to what you've noticed around the community. Have you noticed a change in the morale or the way that the community responds to news or just the general state of the game from, say, this time last year to now with all the PES and server meshing stuff going on?
Yes.
I would
Okay.
say that the community itself, to last long in this game, you have to surround yourself with people that want to actually see this game come through. If you surround yourself with people who are negative and complain all the time, it brings you down. It makes you want to disappear also. And I can't speak for you guys, but I know in my community, it's basically people who have been around long enough who want to see the game happen. They understand the negative aspects of it. They understand the challenges, but overall, they're positive about it. They want to stick around for the game to complete, and they're very supportive of each other. And I think it comes down to essentially, yes, we understand the problems. Yes, it's frustrating. Sure, you can't log in. Yeah, there's a bug. Yeah, Jumptown is ruining this or that. Free Fly is making the service crash. But overall, they're still loving what Star Citizen represents. They'll go play Diablo. They'll come back to Star Citizen. We'll go play Starfield. We'll come back to Star Citizen. Whatever it is, we always come back to Star Citizen. And that is one thing which is always there. The community is supportive of each other also. And for those of you watching who may be going through a down part of that, find people who are supportive, basically. Because it is a difficult development cycle. It is unusual. It is hard. A lot of people get sad, depressed, upset. And you got to surround yourself with people who basically lift you up. And so, yeah, the community is overall negative. But who you decide to surround yourself with will affect how you feel about it too. So surround yourself with people who are positive. We see the problems. We all understand the problems. But we also still come back and play Star Citizen after all of it.
It's that balance of healthy criticism, I think, that people need to have. It's like, I see a lot of people that really are the angry, like, complainers and stuff say, like, oh, well, when is, server meshing going to come out? And it's like, it's that not realizing that a lot of these things are iterative and are going to come out really slowly, but it's just, we just have to deal with it. Like, that's, and it's healthy to be.
It really is.
Yeah, it's healthy to criticize, but not, you have to understand where it's coming from and why.
I want to I'll bring it to the other perspective because Montoya is going to have a lot of people that have been around for a very long time, whereas my community has a couple of those, but a lot of them are people that I've gotten into Star Citizen just through the Rocket League community, pulling them over. So the people that have experienced the game within the past couple of years, and it's interesting because I think this is a testament to the game itself, and that people do understand its vision and where it's going. Is that it's almost the same vibe that's going on, is that these newer people come into it and I'll see them playing, because a lot of times people in my community will play games if I'm playing them, but I see them playing Star Citizen without me all the time. I'll see them logged in verse already, and they're still playing it, but they're taking their breaks for their other games, but they keep coming back to Star Citizen. And the sentiment I get every single time when I show, I've trained probably now about 25 to 30 new players in the game. And every single one of those players still has the same sentiment that, man, the vision for this is sick. I'm going to wait a little bit to play it, or I'm going to come back every few patches or something and check it out. But it seems to be the same thing, that everyone sees the game once they try it. And once you understand that the game has to be played a little differently than most games, then you really understand why this project is so special compared to everything else. And that's the biggest part, is getting people to understand that you're not just going to jump in and start pew 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 shooting things, like, right, the way you approach the game has to be a bit different. But once they get that in their heads, they understand the project and they're kind of invested. While they might complain about, I've seen people get so mad, and I did this, man. I was one of those guys in chat be like, this is brutal. My first few weeks of playing it was like, this game, why this is so stupid. And now here I am, right? And they'll have those moments, but they always come back. So even new players tend to have that same thing. And it's, again, I just want to point that I think it's a testament to the game itself that even old and new can approach it with that same atmosphere and that same mentality.
Yeah, I've noticed a dichotomy in terms of like there's a way of like if you get in the game, you experience the game, you see that vision, there it kind of like unlocks a part of your mind that like is more forgiving. And then when you go so deep into like the minutia of like when is this feature coming out? They said it's gonna come out at this point. It's taking longer to do this particular feature. That's when like you kind of like switch back into like salt mode, I guess. So
Yeah.
we've been talking about it this whole time. It's an interesting like dial where like dial in the like, oh, I see the vision. I'm feeling the vision. I'm getting kind of like what they're going for. And at the same time, like what all of you have been saying is just like healthy criticism, maybe healthy stepping back, understanding, learning about game development in general. Honestly,
Yeah.
I've made video games myself. Like it humbles you to
Yeah.
understand what it takes
I
to
went to
make a
school for
game like
programming,
this.
so I feel that.
Exactly. It humbles you. So
Yeah.
like injecting some of that into your criticism dial and all that kind of stuff. So it's I've seen a mix in the community in terms of trending like for this year. I think that the issue with removing character repair, the issue with player unstowed, that is, I think, singularly the most frustrating thing to people right now. And I try to think about it like if those things weren't in the game right now, if we weren't having the issue of player unstowed, character repair, stuff like that, people not being able to get in the game, what would the sentiment be? And I think it would be generally positive. And
Definitely.
knowing that those issues are not something that they injected in for fun, knowing that those issues are like probably like just as frustrating and confusing for them. It
Probably more
changes
so frustrating for them. They don't want that to happen.
for sure. And knowing that that's the case, it just makes me think that I don't know. It changes the way that I look at this year and the feedback to this year. But I think that a lot of people are getting kind of eclipsed by this whole can't get in the game, friends can't get in the game,
Yeah.
then what's the point?
Quick,
I think. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say a little quick digression is I think part of the problem too is just inherently with a game like this, and this adds to the burnout talk is that it is a sandbox game. Is there isn't a storyline. Most MMOs you'll play will at least have some sort of basic storyline to follow. I'm sure we have that kind of half put together tutorial now, but it's like you don't have an inherent mission. So it's the same thing with Minecraft, is that you play a game like that and you create your own goals. So if a player gets into a game and they don't have a goal to attain, it's very easy for them to say, I'm burnt out. What am I doing? I don't know what to do. Right. So if the game could eventually put some sort of, hey, immediately here's a storyline to get you through the verse a little bit to allow you to discover some of these extra things, I think that's when you'll see a lot less burnout and a continued sentiment from new players of, hey, this is a cool experience. Wow, this is expansive. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be a while too. You start looking at some of the things that you expect in a game, and you realize just how far off they are because the games right now is still so basic. Sometimes I trick myself into thinking they're further along in development than they are because they're just working on alpha implementations of stuff. You think, oh, they're getting ship docking into the game, and you realize, well, they're only doing that on a very small amount of occasions because they want to make sure that the tech works and then move on. Same with things like rivers and caves and putting your names on ships. All of these things are implemented in a way that meant to work and prove that they work so that they can come back to them later down the line. And sometimes you think, hey, they're hitting that pace with those things. It's going to be better. But I think they really got to a point this last year. Partially, it was because of the hype that they've built over Pyro and a 4.0. And we know there are certain reasons that didn't work out, whether it be iCache or the pandemic or developers leaving and coming. Things happened. And that stuff has not come as quickly as it could. But they started the ball rolling all the way back in 2018 with the road to release. And then they doubled down on it when they started talking about Pyro in 2020. And then they doubled down on it again, tripled down on it, whatever. Last year, talking about PES actually working. And all of this, along with the combined gameplay, the new missions, the ability to mine, salvage, it all started to develop this actual kind of minimal viable product. And so we got to this point in the last like 8 months, in my mind, where people started to look at this as a game that they could play as a main game, as something that was right at that point, you know, where it's janky enough that you kind of still don't like it, but it's good enough that people are really into it. And we missed it. It didn't happen. And I feel like now that's dawning on people a lot harder, especially as we don't hear about server meshing and stuff. It's just the expectations of what this game could deliver are so much different based on where we are in the development. And it's just like this weird sort of, like we're going over the speed bump of server meshing. And, you know, nobody really knows what's going to happen. Server meshing might not be able to do as much as we would like initially. But when it first comes in, I do feel like at that point, it would be easier to tell somebody, hey, this is how much time you're probably going to need to wait for this to get to a good point for you.
I think the expectations are, in my opinion, just from the broader scope of things, from the amount of articles I see written on it. I would say the fact that excitement has pulled back a little bit brought expectations back, which allowed the general temperament to be balanced, in my opinion. I mean, I don't see, as you still see them, but I don't see as many Kotaku articles anymore. You know, it's the general sentiment. I've seen articles that are completely just middle of it. Is like, oh, I see the vision of this game, but guys, not ready yet.
Sections. That's what.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But even that, it's like any of my videos that gain any kind of traction. I had my people still play Star Citizen video. 95% of the comments were positive, or people sharing their experiences with the game, and then you had a couple of the, this is a scam, or I hate this.
Because that is something I spoke about many years ago. They said there will be a point in time where there'll be a shift. The overall reaction comments were always negative. Every single article, every single blogger was always negative. And I said there will come a time in the next 2, 3, 4 years where it'll start being neutral, and then it'll start being positive.
And I think we're at the neutral.
We're just past the neutral part now. We're coming like, Star Citizen is still in development, but it's looking good. To eventually it'll come to Star Citizen has managed to release Pyro, the
greatest game ever.
And then we'll sit around, we'll pat each other on the back going, see guys, I told you. And we'll be
told you. Only 4 years after.
I think CIG sees it this way too.
15 years ago, this day would come. You didn't listen.
No, I think CIG sees this as well, and that's why they put in the tutorial now. Like, I think that this is confirmed by the fact that they're like, well, now we're at a point where we're neutral. We should probably start thinking about like
new user experience
and about like like onboarding, so that at least something is there. I know they had a tutorial in the past. I played that tutorial, but they took it out, and it was kind of crickets for a long time. So the fact that they're putting that in there, and they're going to be working on it, and they're doing it in a systemic way, because I think that they're realizing that their base level systems are in a place where they can put a tutorial in there, and they can update their tutorial in a way where it's not like creating a whole new story, whereas the previous tutorial probably would have been. You know what I mean? Like they would have had to get new voice lines, and it wasn't a scalable tutorial. Now they have a scalable tutorial that can scale with their tech that they have in right now, and all of that to me means that they're thinking that they are in a different place than they were in years past. I don't know what they think that means. I don't know if they think it's neutral, or if they think it means that they're past the apex, of development or what, but it's a new season, and that's an interesting thing to be a part of.
Yeah, as long as they don't get ahead of themselves too, right? Because they still have to be realistic about where the good thing is we have all of these AAA devs releasing broken ass games that makes people are getting used to dealing with bugs now, so it's making SC look better. Maybe that's why the tides are shifting.
It's so funny to see Todd Howard, or whatever his name is, come out and be like, we've been working on this game for so long, and everyone's like, yeah, and like Chris Roberts out here like 10-year anniversary, and everyone's like, this game, man, are you kidding me?
Well, you made a good point, Abdi, about them reaching a point that seems neutral from the outside, at least with the different articles like you guys were saying. But then we're also talking about this flip side of that same coin where the internal community is feeling more down. So like they have to keep that outward appearance of the development is making progress and going well, sure, but like at the same time, the internal communication, I guess not internal, but the communication with the community has caused some trouble. So it's almost like they have to make sure to focus on both. Do you guys think that they should be worried about that kind of a morale dip, or people having a lot of trouble with the development, especially with Squadron 42 looming in the background?
If I may, the duality of the issue is an interesting one, is that there's constant flow of new people arriving. Yeah. I know you guys mentioned this. There's new guys you just introduced the game, and they go, holy crap, this is amazing. Whereas there's also people who've been there for going on 10 years, like, I'm sick and tired of it. And so the challenge is there's the new, and looking at the funding, I mean, it's not the guys from 10 years ago still putting money in, it's fresh money coming in. All these new guys are excited and thrilled about it. And all the old guys like, this isn't worth my while of logging in even because there's nothing new. So it's a very interesting duality that exists, that there's an excited, energized base, but there's also a kind of lethargic and just show me what you've done base. And I think that's fascinating.
I'd also disagree that the general sentiment, and maybe because we have such an influx of new people to it, I might disagree that the sentiment is all huff and gruff and negative. I mean, I feel like a lot of what I'm seeing from people, maybe I'm just reading the wrong discords and threads, but it does feel like a lot of people, while they may be frustrated with tick rates and performance, they're saying, all these small patches coming out are actually really good, and it, like, we're actually getting a lot. Like 319 is a sleeper patch, 320 is going to be a sleeper patch, and that seems to be what I'm hearing from a lot of people, which in my opinion is good sentiment. That they're calling them sleeper patches. That means they think they're good.
Call the Jesus patch, but
I think that draws into
that's server meshing. The Jesus patch.
That's the one.
It's like the third version of server meshing.
Yeah, right. Static. So
Gal, go ahead.
One thing that I'm trying to think of right now is, like, we have, like you were saying, Montoya, the communities. So we have like onboarding and bringing people on. I feel like marketing does a lot to bring those new people in, but the community managers are the ones that are keeping the old dogs, I don't know, happy, but it's making sure that they're still getting answers. Yeah. So if you look at the dev tracker, I encourage people, there's a dev tracker. Anytime a dev says anything in Spectrum, the dev tracker and again, it's not an easy thing to find. It should be much easier to find. But anytime a dev says something, they put that, they have it in the dev tracker. It's there's a link that someone is going to post, I'm sure, not me.
But again, it doesn't matter if it's hard to find, because those are the hardcore people looking for that anyways. They're going to find it.
Right. So there's that information there, and I think that the fact that I've seen them hire new people. We've seen them hire new community managers. Like I've seen in the This Week in Star Citizen, like, hey, I'm the new, like, whatever, my name is whatever, welcome, and everyone's like, oh, hi, welcome, like they're still focusing on making sure that there are people in the community, the old dogs are still getting the information that they want. And I think I hope that continues, because I think that will be what helps that situation with the salty players who've been backing for a long time. As, like, if we feel that they're listening to us, I think that will alleviate some of those issues. Thank you, Gallagher.
No, I agree with that, though. Gal, did you have something to say back then?
I was just gonna say, I think that whole thing with the influx of new players coming and old players kind of being jaded, it just ties into the thing Montoya said earlier, with they're always going to come back. That curiosity when big things come is just, it's never going to go. So
yeah, I think that definitely helps do that, and new gameplay systems. I mean, whenever we get base building, however many years away that is, I think that would be one of the things that really ends up bringing a lot of people back.
That's what I say. It gives goals, right? That really now gives people an investment into a space, because this is my personal space. The hard problem is still, and this is, I will never, even myself, be 100% invested in this game until the game is not going to wipe anymore. Because for me, a lot of the things I want to do, I'm not just happy just doing space battles and shooting, right? Like that's not really what the
I
game
haven't
is.
done that in 3 patches, man. Like my
Yeah.
ranking is like at the bottom because there's sorry.
And if I do, I'm just going to jump in like Space Marine or something, right? Like I'm if I really want that fix, or I'm going to play a different shooter. But for me, the game is about that long-term investment for my character and immersing myself in a world. And when it gets wiped, it's going to be impossible. But base building is going to help with that, because now you have something to care for, something to defend, something to build up, to show off to people. But again, if it gets wiped, it's harder to invest, but at least it's more goals. So yeah, base building will be one of those things that I think a lot of people will be attracted to.
Yeah. Okay. So jumping off of that topic, to finish things up, I want to know what you guys think of the risk that CIG is running with this balance of development and keeping the game a little bit unstable, and all the things we've talked about really today, combining to ask, do you think they run a risk of pushing too many players or losing the interest of too many players to keep funding going for both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen? Because I think we all kind of can recognize that they're pushing Squadron so that they can get an influx of cash to continue to fund the development. But is there a possibility that by the time Squadron comes out, they've just eaten into a lot of that funding?
I don't feel that they got a problem on the funding side. I made a video about this a couple of months ago talking about the rate of funding for this year, which is falling slightly behind last year's funding, which is fine, because I don't think every year can be a record-breaking year. It's just mathematics of it. They will eventually have a peak year where you cannot make more funding every single month compared to the previous year. And this is the year where we are falling a bit behind. But I do feel with the release of whatever ship they're going to do during CitizenCon, and we know it's going to be something big. The last CitizenCon was the Kraken. And you wouldn't believe people sitting down in the crowd as the Kraken was released, pulling out their phone and starting to actually buy $1,000. How much was the Kraken?
That's crazy to me.
Buying it live, sitting there, they were spending the money. And so I do believe that funding for this year will, if we don't break a record, will be very close to last year's record-breaking session. And it's an ongoing concern that I mention all the time. Is the funding going to hold up? And I have always said I don't see how this continue to have record funding year after year, and it does. It keeps on having record funding year after year. And so I'm the one that keeps on saying I don't see how next year can be bigger, and every year it turns out to be bigger. I think this year in particular, with Starfield coming out, is that we'll see a lot of people play through Starfield going, holy crap, I love the space sim genre, and find their way to Star Citizen, and we'll have another record-breaking year again.
I've already seen that, man. People come in the chat. Yep.
I made a video on why Starfield is good for Star Citizen, because exactly that. People,
but you're right. They're saying, "Oh, it's going to eat Star Citizen's lunch." You're going, no, if anything, it's introducing a whole new generation of players to this genre.
Yeah, I think people really. It's something about gamers, man. I mean, it's like when you go and you play your Xbox with a disk drive that you put discs in and hold the controller, and then you get angry at somebody else who has a PlayStation where you put the disc in and you hold it. Like, everything is the same. Everything leads to everything else. I don't eat Burger King and then say, Five Guys is screwed. I go to Five Guys.
It's so funny in the artist community. We say that comparisons can be what is the word? It's just that there's no point in comparing. Like, find a new way to describe the thing that you want to talk about without having to resolve and bring in something else. Because you'll bring in new verbs. You'll have more things to actually say that are meaningful, and you'll actually be more critical in thinking about what exactly you're talking about that makes that thing what it is. So it's so funny to me to see these comparisons, and like, you can compare, because sometimes it's just easier for us as humans to do that, but do so knowing that they're different things. They are their own beasts in so many minute, critical ways.
Yeah. Well, what Tomato? Sorry. Just on what Tomato said about the gamers, man, is that it's. I think it's just humans, man. Is that there's one thing that could be a risk, is that the second that we don't have a record funding year, articles come out, is Star Citizen dying? Are people losing interest? And that in itself can perpetuate the idea. And just like stocks, it's all based off of what people are, it's emotion, right? And if all for some reason, and if CIG can't control that narrative of that, no, we knew it was happening, but here, look, we got great things coming to keep people interested. It very well could turn into a situation of invested players saying, oh no, all of my friends don't care anymore. That's why the funding's down. That means I should stop caring. And it can become a very emotional, quick roller coaster drop. I don't think it will. And again, I think as long as we're still getting good patches like the ones we're getting, as long as we get Squadron 42, as long as we get some sort of, maybe we get, I really think a lot of it's going to rely on a big announcement at SitCon. I think maybe we get, it might be still 2 years out, but I think we get a Squadron 42 rough announcement year. But it's something has to happen, I think, and that will help curb any of that negative narrative that could come from a drop in revenue. But it's possible.
They know when they need to spike. They know when they need to set. They know I feel like
they also know that they released a Corvette-sized destroyer that we'll all spend $1,000 next month.
That's exactly right. They know that too. So
okay, but let's talk about that too. I think that's actually a good point. I'm in agreement. I think that there is always the chance that funding can take a dip based on the mentality and the emotion behind it. But they've also got a really, really good model in place that they can just keep dropping new content and keep hyping up new content, and not many games can do that because they can't put all of their money towards that sort of development. So as an MMO and as a game in development, I think it really helps them that they've got multiple updates a year. But everybody always comes back to ship sales, that being how they make their money. I'm sure you've seen plenty of times people saying, oh, they're not going to finish the game because they love ship sales and they like the game being made. But we also know how much money released games make. I mean, millions in billions over the course of a year some of these games will make. So do you think that there is a risk that they could lose funding if they start to roll back ship sales, or what are your thoughts on that kind of approach?
Would you let Gallag go first, because I cut him off just before?
As far as ship sales go, even obviously you need a ship to play the game, but we have such a diverse community, which is something that I think will keep Star Citizen alive through all of the SEs, the scam, and all of that stuff. I'm sure you guys can think of the games that you played before you played Star Citizen. We have Rocket League. I don't know what you guys played. I came from very much a strategy. I played X4. I played Ace Combat games, stuff like that. The guys that I play with a lot came from things like Truck Sim, Farm Sim. Other people came from League of Legends and Valorant and CS. So it's a game that really can draw such a wide audience. And I think for me that's something that will keep the game alive. On top of all of the positives that we do have. Yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say about the ship sales, but yeah, you guys.
Am I the only person that doesn't care really that much about ships?
Yes.
No, I don't care about them.
Tomato does not. I know he does not. I care about ships. I care about ships only because I am very much. I think about the game that I want to play in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So, I already people if you talk to a lot of the people that watch my stream, they know I'm an industrial focused Star Citizen streamer. So anything with industry, I'm super into. They put out a new refinery ship that can refine the stuff that I put, that I mine with my prospector. I get excited about that. They put out a new ship that can just have 1,000 people on it and all this other stuff. I'm like, that's not the gameplay loop that interests me.
Right.
So, I appreciate the fact that they need to put out new ships. The thing that excites me the most personally is when they have roles that will kind of fill in gaps that they have right now. But I think that the ship sale stuff is just a balance that they have to strike, and will continue needing to do so. And I think we will constantly feel a little bit like they're doing too much. And maybe that's just the way that it has to be. Maybe they just need to be. We need to constantly kind of have that angst, because for whatever reason not for whatever reason, they need to bring in money. They need to bring in money. So if that's a fact of the game, I will accept it.
Well, in terms of revenue, man, so eventually they have like they can't do that because it just becomes it, whether you want to say it or not, it becomes pay to win. If I can just buy a big ship, sure, I need to man it, but I'm getting a step ahead of other people if I can just buy that thing where someone else has to work for 3 months to get enough money to buy it in game. So eventually it has to stop for a balanced thing. I think subscriptions are fine for getting like cool decals for your knives or whatever, for your helmet or whatever. What I would love to see, this is probably really well, it's kind of on topic of revenue, but I want an in-game community created decal shop for ships. I want to support an artist. Say I have an artist that really makes really sick decals, that they can sell that in game. CIG takes a bit of that revenue off of it, but then now you have the community making money, so they're incentivized to continue pushing that stuff. They push that out to their socials, they push that to their community, and CIG has kind of a passive income. That's something I would really love to see.
You heard
it reminds me of the DCS
NFTs in the game. You said
NFTs.
I still need an NFT. I'd pay $5. I'd pay out my ass to a can of paint to paint on my ship.
But this does tie in nicely with the topic of this whole podcast, and that is taking breaks and keeping people interested. And new ships are one of the things that keep me interested. Because like Abdi said, there's a certain role I want to play in this game, and I envision a ship which allows me to do it. I don't want to be on a Bengal carrier with 1,000 people at a time. Sometimes it's me and 3 friends want to go exploring. So the 400i came out, and I go, damn, like this is exactly what I want. And I was so excited when the 400i came out because this is the ship which I can see myself using in the game. And if they come out with something better, then that excites me because it represents me, the way I want to see myself playing this game. So I'm happy with new ships coming out. I don't buy like the Galaxy. I never bought the Fury. I bought because I think I like the role it fits. But yeah, I'm always for supporting new ships when they come out if they fit the role I want. But they'll always find people that want to do that, and they're also completionists who want to own every single thing.
True. Goddess people, man.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's like
that kind of
I bought the
funding will
Galaxy and not
continue
the Fury, so you have people on every side of the coin.
Exactly. It's all about your style. It's all about because, like, I mean, I melted my Carrack so that I could get a Galaxy, and that's going to make some people mad to hear. But if I can build a base with my Galaxy, that's the gameplay I want. That's the gameplay I want. So
now you make me want to go look at the Galaxy again.
Yeah. I know, right? That's what I'm saying, man. If I can refine stuff, that's I go where the gameplay is, and I hope that that's what they continue to do. Not just to make ships that like the DPS of this ship is better than the DPS of that. If they are like, this is a refinery ship, this is a salvaging ship, this is a they'll find other combinations and other roles. That's then they'll have my dollar.
Oh, that's actually another one too. I've thought of this before, but in chat, someone reminded me. Ensert said, what about allowing people to pay for private servers that they can mod, that they could do stuff like we see with GTA roleplay and stuff. Imagine just like, okay, monthly you buy a server that you get your server mesh and all this stuff, and you can put your community on that. Now, then you're fragmenting your player base, but I mean that's another possible.
Was one of the early promises when the game came out. The funding goals was private servers.
I don't
know if that's ever direction they'll go, but I'm whatever. I like the idea.
Yeah, the problem is
say something. Did they just for the first time say something about instancing? Like recently?
Oh yeah, so I didn't like that. Yeah, the hangers, because like again, one of that
before though.
They did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, back when they used to talk about persistent hangers, they talked about how, apartments and habs. They talked about how it would be instanced, and the fact that it would be basically me moving around in the background, and it would load in your hanger in that same place.
Very interesting.
That's one of the decisions that they've made that I was kind of like, I don't know if I like that, because part of the fun of the game is just that, or the immersiveness is that if you see it, everyone sees it. Like it's there for that interaction happens for everyone.
How am I
And
supposed to rob someone's house if it's instant?
like I would just rather them have, and maybe it's a performance thing, but I would rather.
I would think that it would be for sure. It's a performance thing, and I'm guessing that there are going to be places where there are going to be places where like LEOs and stuff like that, places, stations and stuff like that where it is not instanced because it's just a hangar that you're going to or whatever. But I think maybe I don't know, maybe Space Tomato can speak more to this, but I don't know. I feel like your hangar, which is at like maybe your planetary base or whatever that you designated or whatever, that will be instance. And if that helps with performance, I'll take it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I don't need them to do everything, realistic. And I think especially at this point, you start to get to the point where you're like, okay, cut some corners. If you need to, you can half fake it. I know they're talking about building interiors.
Slope,
well, yeah,
that's the only thing. Like if it turns into like this battle is instance, so only you and 5 friends.
Oh yeah, no, none of that. No. I think things like apartments and hangars, it makes more sense for static locations like that. But if you're talking about gameplay implications, then yeah, I wouldn't do that.
We'll see.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's I don't know, I might be in a minority here, but I don't mind the idea of like if I pull up to a station and it's super busy, I see ships buzzing around, and I gotta wait 5 minutes because I'm in holding position to land. Like I honestly don't mind that. To me, the point of the game is to feel super immersive. Yeah, sure, you're gonna get your TikTok brain kids that are gonna be like, screw this game, I need to do everything right away. But it's like I don't know. To me, that's cool. Seeing a busy world around me and having to wait as a result.
I think you'll still see that. I think like your your Seraphim stations, your Everest harbors will probably be that way. But I think just like your planetary locations, I think that those will probably be the places where those are more instance. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I think we got a lot of really good feedback on this. I think people are having trouble with the game at times. Plenty of people are really enjoying the game. It is, you really make the call for yourself. I think that's what the conclusion ends up being. Like, there are times when the game is fun. There are times when it's not. Treat it like any other game. Go play other things when you're unhappy. Play this one when you're looking forward to it, and expect it to take a little while. Did you guys have any closing thoughts you wanted to make on this?
Like Leaf said, take that space, look at your four corners of your room and say, what's going to make me happy? If it's not Star Citizen, don't play it. Like, just take
I like that four corners thing, man. That's good.
It's just a good thing mentally. Just if you're stressed out, pull yourself back for a moment. It's easy to let our brains exist in an online environment. You could be sitting here thinking about a tweet that just went out, thinking about whatever. Just pull back and enjoy the space. Do the thing in this moment. We're all going to die, so enjoy the moment right now. If it's not Star Citizen, don't play it.
Bottle of wine would make me feel very happy.
There you go.
There you go.
Although it is 9 a.m., so I don't know.
All right, guys.
It's 2 a.m. here.
Oh, boy. Well, thank you so much for joining us for that.
Yeah, of course, bro.
Before we settle things up for the day, can we get a couple of links, let us know where you can find, or where people can find your content, your streams, or your ships to blow you up and steal your stuff. Gallag, can you start us off?
Gallagher07 on Twitch. That's pretty much where I hang. I'm trying to get more into the YouTube, but it's time and but
you can do it.
Twitch
I believe
is my spot.
Cool. Montoya.
Montoya Test on YouTube is the main channel. Otherwise, just search up Test Squadron in Google. You'll find everything there. And it's been a pleasure meeting you guys. Always a pleasure meeting the new, fresh, young faces in Star Citizen.
The noobs. Abdi.
You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/AbdiYohan. You can find me on Twitter as well, and you can probably find I'm AbdiYohan everywhere. My portfolio site, my even in-game. But I won't answer your call if I don't know you. So please don't pirate me. I'm just kidding. You can pirate me.
I never answer calls in this game. It's scary.
I know. I'm just like, who are you? Who are you? I need caller ID. But yeah. So if you're interested in illustration work, I do that as well. I might be opening up commissions at some point this year. So follow me on Twitter at AbdiYohan. If you're interested in my commission work as well, and if you want to see the kind of artwork that I do, AbdiYohan.com. It's
now I'm
it's
curious. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, go for
me
it.
too.
Go for it.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool, man. And Leaf, my man.
I'm not famous enough to get calls in game, so feel free to call me and make me feel special. It's Liefx everywhere. It's not Liefx. It's bad branding. It's on me. But yeah, Liefx everywhere. I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Liefx. Also, I do Star Citizen content on YouTube, so youtube.com/Leaf at Liefx now. I think they do ads now. Yeah, Liefx. But literally Google it. You'll find all my stuff.
I'm literally following all of you right now. I follow you, some of you on YouTube, but I'm getting you on Twitch too.
What a supportive community. See, this is what it's about.
I'm going to follow you guys on some of your socials and make you earn the rest.
There you go. I like that. Make
What
me
do I
work.
have to shake to get the follow?
All right, guys. Thanks again for joining me. Thank you, everybody who came in here to watch live. Thank you if you're watching this after the fact, watching this on YouTube or listening to it on any of the audio platforms we support. We appreciate you all. This has been Citizen Central Podcast, and I will see you all next month. Thanks again.